Lyra's shuttle hovered above the alien academy, a vast structure carved into jagged cliffs and glowing with strange, bioluminescent lights. The academy was famous across the galaxy, known for training the fiercest creatures and their alien handlers. Even from a distance, Lyra felt the weight of history pressing down, the stories of beasts and cadets who had faced them echoing in her mind. The landing bay was enormous, stretching far beyond the eye could see. Towering alien instructors moved with quiet authority, while cadets of all shapes and sizes trained or hurried along narrow walkways. Lyra felt small among them, her human frame easily dwarfed by the tall, multi-limbed aliens, but she held her head high. She had come here for a reason: to learn, to survive, and perhaps to understand the legendary beasts whispered about in every corner of the galaxy. As she stepped off the shuttle, she noticed a group of alien cadets watching her. Their skin shimmered like liquid metal, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They whispered among themselves, pointing occasionally in her direction. Lyra smiled faintly. She had expected this. Humans were rare here and outsiders always drew attention. She ignored their stares, keeping her pace calm and deliberate. "Welcome to the academy," a voice said, echoing from above. Lyra looked up to see an instructor descending on a levitating platform. He was tall, armored in plates that shimmered like liquid crystal, and his multiple eyes assessed her like a predator evaluating prey. "You will find our academy challenging," he said. "We train with creatures that most beings fear. Only the brave, intelligent, and calm survive. Let us hope you belong here." Lyra nodded politely. "I am ready," she replied quietly. The instructor's gaze lingered on her for a moment, then he gestured toward the main halls. "Then follow. Your first orientation begins immediately. And do not underestimate the creatures you will meet." The halls were immense, twisting through the cliffs like the innards of some giant living organism. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing softly, while creatures of all shapes, scaly, furry, armored, and winged, moved through the corridors, some chained, some guided by cadets, others left free under careful supervision. Lyra's eyes widened as she caught glimpses of small dragons leaping from ledges, serpentine beasts slithering through shadowed corners, and winged predators testing their flight under strict rules. Instructors and older cadets moved quickly, herding new students toward the central training arena. Lyra noticed a massive gate ahead, beyond which the legendary beast was said to be kept. Rumor said it had never been controlled completely, a creature of immense size, strength, and intelligence. Its offspring, smaller but still powerful, trained alongside cadets, learning the ways of battle and instinct. Lyra felt a shiver of excitement and fear. The academy was not just a place of learning, it was a crucible. New cadets were tested not only physically but mentally and emotionally. The creatures they encountered could sense fear, hesitation, or malice, and those who failed to command their own courage often found themselves hurt, or worse. Lyra had prepared for this, but the reality was more imposing than anything she had imagined. As they approached the containment arena, Lyra caught sight of the legendary beast for the first time. Its massive form was partly hidden behind reinforced barriers, muscles rippling beneath thick scales, eyes glowing with intelligence and caution. It watched the new arrivals with a careful, predatory gaze. Even restrained, the creature exuded power, a presence that made her heart beat faster. Every cadet nearby instinctively gave it space, moving cautiously and speaking in hushed tones. Lyra paused, feeling the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary creature. This was a being that had survived countless challenges and tested the courage of the galaxy's finest cadets. And now here she was, a human among aliens stepping into its world. She did not feel small in the way others might. Instead, she felt a strange connection, a curiosity that matched the creature's own wary intelligence. The instructor beside her noticed her attention. "Do not let fear guide you," he said. "Respect the beast. Understand it. Observe before you act. Humans have a unique ability to connect where others cannot. Perhaps you will succeed where others fail." Lyra nodded again, taking a careful step closer to the arena's edge. The smaller offspring of the legendary beast moved around inside, playful and curious, glancing at the new arrivals with cautious interest. Some nudged each other, leaping and bounding, testing their own limits. Lyra felt a smile creep onto her face. They were fierce, yes, but young. And like her, they were learning. As the first day of orientation continued, Lyra followed instructions, observing carefully, noting the behavior of every creature, every cadet, every instructor. She began to understand the rhythm of the academy, the way creatures responded to movement, tone, and presence. Small gestures, like a calm posture, steady breathing, and soft observation, could make a difference between gaining trust and provoking hostility. By the end of the day, Lyra had navigated corridors, met cadets and instructors, and observed both the legendary beast and its young. She was exhausted but exhilarated. She had arrived at a place filled with danger, wonder, and opportunity. And she felt, deep inside, that this academy would challenge her in ways she had never imagined, and that she might change it in ways no one expected. As night fell over the cliffs, the glowing symbols along the walls casting soft light over the sleeping creatures, Lyra lay in her dormitory, thinking about what she had seen. The legendary beast's eyes, the curiosity of its young, and the careful, tense respect of the alien cadets, all of it stayed in her mind. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, and that her courage and ingenuity would be tested. But she also felt ready. Somehow, she sensed that this human had a place among the fiercest beings in the galaxy. And perhaps, just perhaps, the creatures themselves already knew it. Lyra awoke early the next morning, the alien academy still quiet except for the low hum of energy running through the halls. Today she would begin her first real lesson, observing the young creatures under the watchful eyes of the instructors. While the legendary beast loomed in its containment arena, its offspring were smaller, more agile, and surprisingly playful. These young ones were said to test every cadet's patience and courage, and Lyra felt both nervous and excited. As she approached the training area, she noticed other cadets gathering, each trying to assert dominance or impress the instructors. Many of the alien students seemed tense, whispering strategies to one another, but Lyra moved calmly, letting curiosity guide her. Her eyes fell on the enclosure containing the young creatures. They were varied in appearance, scaly, furred, winged, and clawed, but all shared the same sharp intelligence in their glowing eyes. They darted around the arena, chasing each other, leaping over obstacles, and testing the boundaries of their small space. One juvenile noticed Lyra immediately. A small, dragon-like creature with emerald scales tilted its head, watching her carefully. Unlike the other cadets, Lyra did not approach aggressively or make sudden movements. She crouched a few feet away, extending her hands slowly, letting the young dragon see that she meant no harm. The other cadets snickered quietly. "You'll never tame them," one muttered. "They bite, scratch, and throw you around. You're too soft." Lyra ignored them. She focused on the small creature before her, noticing the subtle flick of its tail, the way its eyes followed her movements. She slowly pulled a small snack from her bag, a special protein treat given by the instructors for first interactions. The young dragon sniffed the air and hesitated, unsure. Lyra held out the treat calmly, letting it see the gesture as safe, not threatening. After a tense moment, the creature stepped forward and took the treat gently from her hand. Lyra smiled softly, sitting cross-legged to make herself smaller and less intimidating. The other young dragons began to notice her, drawn by curiosity and the scent of food. They approached cautiously, circling her, sniffing, and occasionally nudging one another. One of the instructors, hovering above on a small levitation platform, observed closely. "Notice how she does not force herself on them," the instructor whispered to a colleague. "She uses patience and subtlety. Most cadets try to dominate the young creatures. She earns their trust." Lyra began to interact more, softly speaking to the creatures in a calm tone. She mirrored their movements, leaning, tilting, and blinking slowly, gestures that showed she was not a threat. The young dragons responded, nudging her, brushing against her arms, and even mimicking some of her gentle movements. Other cadets watched in disbelief as the humans seemed to form a connection the aliens had never seen before. "Humans, they do something strange," one alien whispered. "She does not fight them, yet they obey her, trust her." Lyra continued to play with the young creatures, allowing them to climb over her shoulders, curl around her arms, and dart around her feet. She laughed quietly when one little dragon attempted to snatch a tool from her bag, letting it succeed and praising it when it returned the item. The young ones chirped and growled happily, testing limits but respecting her presence. Meanwhile, the legendary beast in the adjacent arena noticed the unusual activity. Its glowing eyes followed every movement, watching as its offspring approached and accepted a human without fear. The creature's muscles tensed slightly, a low rumble vibrating through the arena, but it did not break free from its restraints. Something about the human's calm, confident presence caught its attention, and it froze, unsure how to respond. Lyra remained unaware of the adult beast's scrutiny. She focused entirely on the young ones, sensing their individual personalities. One was cautious, a little timid, preferring to stay close to the edges. Another was bold, leaping onto her shoulders and testing her reactions. She adjusted her movements, responding to each with patience, laughter, and encouragement. Each interaction strengthened their trust, and the alien instructors exchanged amazed glances. The cadets who had mocked her earlier grew quiet, watching from a distance. Some whispered nervously, realizing that strength alone did not command these creatures. Lyra's connection came from something deeper: understanding, patience, and empathy. She did not intimidate, she guided gently. After several hours, the young dragons gathered near her feet, chirping, purring, and nuzzling. Lyra reached out slowly, stroking their scales and fur carefully, making sure no sudden movements startled them. The creatures leaned into her touch, completely at ease. Even the instructors were impressed at how quickly she had gained their trust. A small alarm sounded, signaling the end of the first session. Lyra stood slowly, the young dragons watching her intently. They chirped in a way that seemed almost reluctant to let her leave. She smiled and bowed slightly, earning soft responses from each creature. As she left the arena, other cadets looked at her differently. Some whispered, still trying to understand how a single human had gained the trust of beings that had intimidated dozens of alien trainees. Lyra walked calmly, sensing the respect growing around her, but also aware that the true test was still ahead. That evening, as she returned to her dormitory, she reflected on the day. She had not used strength, weapons, or authority. She had used patience, observation, and empathy. And it had worked. The young creatures had trusted her. The legendary beast had noticed her. And somewhere deep inside, she felt that this connection would shape the challenges and adventures yet to come in the Alien Academy. The next morning, Lyra returned to the academy before the other cadets. The halls were quiet, filled only with the hum of energy and the distant sounds of creatures stirring in their enclosures. She carried a small pouch of treats for the young dragons, hoping to continue building trust. Today felt different somehow, a tension in the air that she couldn't yet place. As she entered the arena, the young dragons noticed her immediately. They chirped and bounded toward her, tails flicking with excitement. Lyra crouched down, offering treats and gentle words, just as she had done before. The creatures responded instantly, climbing over her arms and shoulders, nuzzling her hands. She laughed softly, careful not to startle them, and for a moment, the world outside the enclosure seemed to fade. Then from the corner of her eye, Lyra noticed a shift. The legendary beast, the massive adult restrained behind reinforced barriers, had awakened. Its glowing eyes fixed on the young dragons, and on her. The creature's muscles rippled beneath thick, armored scales as it rose slightly on its massive legs. The low rumble of its growl vibrated through the arena, sending a wave of unease over the other cadets nearby. Most cadets froze, unsure how to react. Whispers ran through the observation deck. "It's angry," one said. "Get back," another urged. Many stepped away, keeping a safe distance. Some reached for weapons, but the instructors held them back, signaling calm. The adult beast's gaze did not move away from Lyra and the juveniles. It seemed uncertain. Lyra felt a shiver of fear but kept her movements slow and deliberate. She did not raise her hands or make sudden gestures. Instead, she knelt slightly, eyes meeting the beast from across the arena, showing no aggression. The young dragons noticed the tension and clustered closer to her, chirping and curling around her feet. They seemed to trust her completely, even as their parent loomed. The beast's growl deepened, reverberating through the chamber. Its massive head tilted, nostrils flaring as it tried to understand the situation. Every muscle in its body was ready to strike, yet it remained frozen in place. Lyra could feel the weight of its presence, a mixture of power, intelligence, and uncertainty. It had never seen a human interact with its young so confidently, without fear. She spoke softly, words carried more for calm than command. "It's okay," she whispered, keeping her tone gentle. "I mean no harm. I only care for your little ones." The beast's eyes narrowed slightly, its gaze flicking between her and its offspring. There was a strange, tense curiosity in its stance, as if it could sense the truth of her words but could not fully trust it. The alien instructors watched in awe. "Incredible," one murmured. "It's not attacking, it's observing. Nothing has ever calmed it like this before." They had trained cadets for years, yet none had approached the legendary beast and its young with such patience and courage. Lyra's calmness seemed to hold more power than any weapon or technology. The young dragons chirped happily, playing at her feet, oblivious to the tension around them. One bold juvenile even climbed onto Lyra's shoulder, nudging her ear with its snout. Lyra reached up and stroked its scales gently, her eyes never leaving the adult beast. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the creature's stance relaxed a fraction. Its massive claws dug into the ground less tightly, its tail swished more calmly. A small group of alien cadets who had been watching from a distance whispered among themselves. "She's fearless, but she's not reckless," one said. "She doesn't fight it, she doesn't provoke it, she just exists alongside it." Lyra continued moving slowly among the young dragons, offering soft encouragement, playing lightly and observing their behavior. Each gentle laugh and careful movement reinforced the trust the juveniles had in her. The adult beast, though still tense, watched silently. It shifted slightly, lowering its head to observe her more closely. Its glowing eyes, once filled with suspicion and latent aggression, now held curiosity, as if trying to understand this strange human who commanded respect without dominance. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Lyra did not rush, she did not demand attention or action. Instead, she allowed the creatures to come to her, responding to each with care and observation. The legendary beast remained motionless except for subtle movements, tail flicks, nostril flares and slight shifts of its massive body, but it did not roar, charge or strike. Finally, the instructors called the session to a close, signaling the young dragons back to their designated play zones. Lyra followed gently, making sure each juvenile returned safely. She gave the adult beast one last steady gaze, bowing slightly in respect. The creature's head tilted once more, almost acknowledging her presence, before it settled back onto its haunches, still restrained but clearly less tense. Lyra stood quietly, catching her breath. The other cadets stared, some in awe, some in disbelief. She had done what many thought impossible. She had faced the legendary beast and its young without fear, without aggression, and without chaos. She had earned a fraction of its attention and perhaps its trust. As she left the arena, the young dragons chirped and chirped, following her steps, reluctant to leave her side. Lyra smiled, feeling a thrill of connection and wonder. She understood now that fearlessness alone was not enough. Calm, observation, patience, and care could achieve what raw strength never could. That night, as she returned to her dormitory, Lyra reflected on the day. The legendary beast had awakened, frozen in confusion and curiosity. The young ones had accepted her completely. And somewhere deep inside she felt the beginning of a bond that could change everything, not only for her but for the academy, the creatures, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The next morning, Lyra entered the academy with a quiet confidence she had not felt before. The air was charged with energy, as if the academy itself sensed the events of the previous day. Word had spread quickly among cadets and instructors alike. The human had faced the legendary beast and its young, and she had done so without fear. Whispers of amazement followed her through the corridors, but Lyra paid them little mind. She had work to do. Her first stop was the arena where the young dragons played. They recognized her immediately, chirping and scampering toward her with unbridled enthusiasm. Lyra knelt, offering treats and soft words, letting them climb over her arms and shoulders. The creatures had grown comfortable, showing trust that many cadets had failed to earn over months of training. Their playfulness reminded her that patience was a powerful tool. Fear and aggression could not build bonds, but calm and care could. The adult beast watched silently from its enclosure, its massive eyes following every movement. It remained tense but did not move aggressively. Lyra sensed its watchful presence and adjusted her behavior accordingly. She spoke softly, not to command but to reassure, her calm voice carrying across the arena. The young dragons responded instantly, chirping and curling closer to her. An instructor hovered nearby, observing closely. "Notice how she does not force her presence," he said quietly to another. "She allows the creatures to approach her on their terms. Most cadets would have tried to dominate them with force or authority. She is earning trust through calm, not fear." Lyra moved slowly through the group, letting each young dragon interact at its own pace. One bold juvenile leapt onto her shoulder, attempting to bite playfully at a strap of her pack. Lyra did not flinch or pull away. Instead, she stroked its scales gently and whispered praise. The creature relaxed, its playful growl softening. The adult beast's eyes flicked at this interaction, its stance shifting slightly, as though it were trying to comprehend what it was seeing. The other cadets watched from a safe distance, their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief. Many had tried to gain the trust of the young dragons using strict commands, intimidation, or flashy demonstrations of strength, yet they had failed. Lyra's approach, quiet and careful, was achieving results no one else could. As the session continued, the adult beast leaned forward slightly, eyes fixed on Lyra. Its massive claws dug into the ground as it studied her, muscles rippling under thick scales. A low rumble escaped its throat, but it was not anger, it was curiosity. The creature seemed confused, yet drawn in as if it recognized a difference in this human. She did not act like the others. She did not fear. She did not demand. She simply existed calmly, a presence the young dragons trusted and the adult could not ignore. Lyra knelt near the edge of the play area, her hands resting gently on the ground. The young dragons approached her slowly, nuzzling her fingers and brushing against her arms. One timid juvenile, which had stayed close to the enclosure's edge in previous sessions, stepped forward this time. Lyra held her hand out, allowing it to sniff and explore before offering a treat. The little dragon accepted it cautiously, chirping softly in response. The adult beast shifted, lowering its massive head slightly as though acknowledging Lyra's careful patience. The instructors exchanged glances. "She has something we have not seen before," one said quietly. "Humans, they connect differently. Strength and aggression are predictable. Calm, observation and understanding, that is rare." Lyra spent hours with the young dragons that day, allowing them to explore, play and test limits while she remained patient and composed. Each interaction reinforced trust, and each moment of calm seemed to reach the adult beast, who observed silently yet attentively. Even when one of the juveniles made a sudden leap, knocking a small piece of equipment to the ground, Lyra responded with gentle reassurance, showing that mistakes and energy were acceptable within boundaries. By mid-afternoon, the adult beast had shifted further, lowering its massive body closer to the ground and keeping its gaze fixed on Lyra. It made no aggressive movements, only subtle gestures of observation. The young dragons played around her, their trust unshaken. Lyra realized that trust was not something demanded, it was something earned slowly, with patience and consistency. She was beginning to understand the creature's world, and it was beginning to understand hers. Other cadets began to approach cautiously, curious and respectful. Some offered assistance, while others merely observed. They noticed the difference between Lyra's calm approach and the rushed, forceful tactics they had learned. Slowly, they began to mimic her patience, realizing that the young dragons responded far better to quiet understanding than to commands or displays of power. As the session ended, Lyra rose slowly, giving the young dragons one last gentle pat. They chirped and climbed toward her, reluctant to leave. The adult beast, though still restrained, shifted its gaze one last time, holding eye contact for a long, measured moment. There was no aggression, only a cautious acknowledgement, a silent respect forming between human and creature. Lyra walked from the arena, tired but exhilarated. She had done more than play with young dragons. She had demonstrated that patience, calm and empathy could bridge worlds, even when fear and power ruled elsewhere. The legendary beast had begun to trust her presence indirectly through its offspring, and that trust, she knew, would shape the challenges ahead. That evening, as Lyra returned to her dormitory, she reflected on what she had achieved. Trust was fragile but powerful. Calm could achieve what force could not. And in the eyes of creatures both young and mighty, she felt the stirrings of something extraordinary, a bond that could change the academy and perhaps the understanding of humans across the galaxy. The morning sun bathed the alien academy in a soft, glowing light, casting long shadows across the arena where the legendary beast and its young were kept. Lyra arrived early as always, carrying her small pouch of treats and a quiet determination. The events of the previous days had already begun to ripple through the academy. Whispers of a human who could calm and earn the trust of creatures no alien cadet dared approach had spread among students and instructors alike. As Lyra entered the arena, the young dragon spotted her immediately, chirping and scampering toward her with boundless energy. She knelt gracefully, offering soft words and gentle pats, letting them climb onto her arms and shoulders. The creatures were playful yet careful, knowing they were safe with her. Lyra had learned their behaviors, their moods and their personalities, and she responded with the patience and attention each one deserved. The adult beast, the legendary creature whose mere presence had inspired fear across the academy, now watched more attentively than ever. It remained behind its reinforced barriers but had shifted its massive body closer to the edge of the enclosure. Its glowing eyes, once full of suspicion and latent aggression, now held a careful curiosity. The instructors and cadets observed from above, whispering in disbelief. Many had spent months, even years, trying to gain the attention or trust of the young dragons, yet here was a human doing it effortlessly through patience and calm. Lyra reached out slowly, stroking the scales of one bold juvenile that had leapt onto her shoulder. "Easy," she murmured softly, her voice carrying comfort and reassurance. The young dragon chirped happily and settled in her arms. The adult beast rumbled low, a sound that seemed like both approval and contemplation. Its eyes flicked between Lyra and its offspring, and for the first time, it made no threatening move. Some cadets who had mocked her arrival now stood silently, watching as a bond unfolded that none of them could create. Lyra's approach was neither commanding nor forceful. She did not seek dominance, she offered understanding, trust, and calm presence. The young dragons responded instinctively, and through them, the adult beast began to sense the sincerity of her intentions. An instructor floated closer, speaking in a low tone to another. "This is remarkable. Never have I seen a human command such attention from both the young and the legendary creature. It respects her calmness. That alone is extraordinary." Lyra moved among the young dragons, laughing softly as they played and explored around her. One timid juvenile, which had remained on the sidelines in previous sessions, now approached carefully and nudged her hand. She smiled, letting it climb onto her arm, offering a soft treat and whispering praise. The adult beast's eyes followed every movement, tilting its massive head in a gesture that seemed almost reflective. It did not roar, it did not lash out, it simply observed, learning. As the session continued, the legendary creature slowly stepped back from the edge of its enclosure, lowering its gaze to the ground, yet keeping eyes on Lyra and its young. It seemed to be assessing her, measuring her intentions. She did not flinch. She did not retreat. Instead, she continued interacting with the juveniles, responding to each one's behavior with patience, laughter, and calm attention. Every gentle word, every soft touch, seemed to reach not only the young dragons but also the adult observing from behind the barrier. By midday, the young dragons had completely accepted her presence, clustering around her feet, climbing her arms and nuzzling her hands. Lyra stood slowly, letting them settle nearby, maintaining calm and steady eye contact with the legendary beast. The creature tilted its massive head again, its tail swishing slowly, a subtle acknowledgement of her presence and patience. It did not roar. It did not charge. It simply remained aware and watchful, yet no longer tense or hostile. The instructors signaled the end of the session, and the young dragons chirped softly, reluctantly leaving Lyra's side to return to their designated areas. Lyra knelt one last time, gently patting each juvenile and whispering calm words. She rose slowly, turning to the adult beast. Their eyes met for a long, silent moment. In that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. She had proven herself not through force, not through fear, but through calmness, empathy, and trust. The creature acknowledged her in its own way, a silent respect that few humans or even aliens had ever earned. Other cadets approached carefully, their expressions a mixture of awe and newfound respect. Many whispered quietly among themselves, noting how Lyra had achieved something they had considered impossible. Even the alien instructors, who had spent decades training the Academy's creatures, nodded in acknowledgement. As Lyra walked toward the exit of the arena, the young dragons chirped and bounded around her, eager yet obedient. The adult beast remained behind its barrier, its massive form relaxed, its gaze following her. Lyra felt a sense of accomplishment but also a deep connection. This was not just a victory for her. It was the beginning of a new understanding between humans and creatures of the galaxy, a bond forged through calm, patience, and respect. That evening in her dormitory, Lyra reflected on the days that had passed. She had arrived as a newcomer, small and underestimated, but she had proven that trust and understanding could overcome fear and power. The legendary beast had acknowledged her presence. The young dragons had accepted her completely. And the Academy, once filled with doubt and intimidation, now saw the extraordinary potential of a human who could connect with even the fiercest creatures. Lyra lay down, smiling softly. She knew challenges still lay ahead, but she also knew that respect earned through calm and empathy could create bonds stronger than any fear or aggression. Somewhere deep inside she felt a new future unfolding, not just for herself but for the creatures, the Academy, and perhaps the galaxy itself. In her heart, she understood that this was only the beginning of a story that would change everything.